Hey guys, welcome back to Honey in the Rock. I'm Sophie, and I think this is episode 123 maybe, but I'm excited that you're listening today. So today is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, but I just wanted to share a few things that the Lord has been teaching me and 2 words that have already made impact in this new year, 2025, which is kind of crazy. As I reflect on last year, it was a really sweet year. I graduated high school. I had a really fun friend group that spring semester, which was just so fun and a good summer. And then starting college, which was so hard and so good. And especially as I look back on my first semester of college, I think that something new and unknown is hard. I learned that you grow a lot when you're uncomfortable. And so I think with going into college was all of those new challenges, but it also was so much fun, and I learned a whole lot about the importance of community and what it looks like to build a sweet community, and just to be intentional with my time there. And it was so good, and I'm really thankful. I struggled a lot of my anxiety that I've dealt with before came up again, so I got back in therapy, which was really good. I think my anxiety came from something being new, and I was just trying to control a lot since everything was so new, and I just had to remember, and the Lord taught me what it just looked like to surrender that back to Him. And so that was 2024. It was a really hard year, but it also was a really good year of just a lot of sweet memories. And so I'm really thankful for that. But like maybe 2 weeks ago, my mom sent out this link to a couple of like the girls in my family, my aunts and stuff, and it was like to see what your word of the year was for 2025. And like I filled out the thing, and my word was abide, which is kind of funny because it was also my word last year. And apparently I needed to work on that a little more, which I think you always work on abiding in God. It's not something that you complete, it's something that keeps happening. But it did stand out to me a lot last year, and something that I had to go back to, and that was really hard for me. To abide and to rest in Jesus in last year, which was a weird season, but then especially going into this year, I'm like, I need to abide. And so when we were at lunch with my grandma, I was like, what does it even mean to abide? Like, what do you think that means? And she said to rest, which is really sweet. And I think when we look at it that way, to abide means to rest in Jesus and what Jesus did on the cross, to rest in His commandments and to rest with His people, just all of these things to rest. And I also see in John where it also like uses the word remain. So what does it look like for me to remain in God, for me to remain in the good news of Jesus Christ, even when life gets hard, so on the mountains and in the valley. And by remaining in Him, we're going to overflow with the fruits of the Spirit from Him. And so I think, I'll just read it. It is John 15. I'm going to start reading in verse 9. I have loved you even as the Father has loved me. Remain in my love. When you obey my commandments, you remain in my love, just as I obey the Father's commandment and remain in His love. I have told you these things so that you'll be filled with my joy. Your joy will overflow. This is my commandment. Love each other the same way I have loved you. And then it goes also to like being like, there's no greater love than the friend who lays his life down for another friend. And that's exactly what Jesus did for us. And so the greatest form of love is what Jesus did, His sacrificial love of living the perfect life in death and resurrection in Him. And then I think what's really sweet is in abiding in Jesus and remaining in Him and resting in Him comes joy. Excuse me. Which goes into my second word of the year, which was one that I didn't get from the test, but it's something that sort of came up. And so just by remaining in Jesus's love, remaining in him, abiding in him, resting in him, is just what I'm remembering as his daughter. Abide in me, daughter. And that's what Jesus is saying to us. And so this year I am working on remaining in his love, resting in his love, abiding in his love. All of those words mean the same thing, but I'm using them just as a reminder. And just to remain in obeying his commandments. And that's where true joy is going to be found. And so abiding is just something that I think we all can work on, and something that I just had to do some research on, and I encourage you to like look into it and read the passages about abiding, because it is really powerful and something that we all can work on. And my second word is delight, which is really sweet, because when in John, when it said you abide in him, then comes the overflow of joy. And I think delight and joy in my mind are sort of similar. I know it means different things, but to me, those are similar. I think as somebody who struggles with anxiety and depression, sometimes it's hard for me to delight in things, because my brain almost goes so crazy that it just cannot see that good. And so for me this year, the challenge is to be delighting in him when things are hard and when things are good, not just like on the perfect moments. And so I think there's so many things, or I know there's so many things that the Lord has blessed me with that are right in front of me. Friendships that have been so encouraging and sweet and mature and kind, and just a community at Furman, and a family that loves me, and a good church family, and just God's word. And there's just so many things for me to delight in that are right in front of me. But how often I miss those things because I'm so worked up about a small situation or a selfish desire, or just so many different things. And so for me to delight, I need to abide first, and I didn't even realize these connected until I wrote it out. And so first, this year I'm focusing on abiding in Jesus as my Lord and my Savior, as his daughter. And from that, the overflow of joy will come, where I can delight in him, which is really special. And because he's faithful in all seasons. So it's like he's faithful even then. So even when the worst thing happens, even when you lose a job, or can't have the baby, or don't get the good grade, or lose a friend, or break up with your boyfriend, or whatever, lose a loved one, like whenever the hard comes, we can still delight in him, because the good news is still true. And he's still faithful then. And I might be rambling, I don't really know, but something that I learned a lot last year was what it looked like to have my expectation in Jesus. And once I put my expectation in something that was not Jesus, or somebody that was not Jesus, I was let down. But putting my hope and my expectation in Jesus alone, gives you the desires of your heart, because your heart is being aligned with him as you desire him. And it's easier to delight in him when your expectation is also in him. Once your expectation becomes on something else, it's hard to delight in him because you don't see the good in it. And so, what does it look like for me to delight in Jesus, even when life doesn't look like how it expected, or I'm frustrated that I'm struggling with something that I used to struggle with? It's like, why am I still struggling with this now? And what does it look like for me to delight in that? And that's something I'm praying and asking the Lord to show me how to delight in seasons, even that are filled with depressive thoughts and hard things. My family actually is walking through a hard season right now of loss, and so it's already testing me in what it looks like to delight in him, even in this season of heartache and unknown, and just crying out to the Lord and lamenting to him and praying. And so what does it look like to delight even in this? And I think there can be the both. There's like the both and it doesn't mean like I can't acknowledge that this is a hard season. It can be both weary and like wonderful, and it can be both just a season of heartbreak, but also experiencing joy. there can be two things. These things can coexist. Worship and war almost can coexist in our lives, and it will, since we live in this sinful world. And so there's going to be both, sometimes hard and good, and they can go together. And so I think that's just what it looks like for me to delight, is to delight when both the hard and the good are existing together, and just to sing his praises that is kind of how I'm doing it right now. When I'm feeling like unable to delight in who Jesus is, I just turn on worship songs and sing his praises, and I feel like it immediately just flips something in my brain, just to worship and sing his praise. And I'm not a good singer. My brothers remind me that often. But I think that's just a way I found that it's easy for me to delight in Jesus, and just remembering how he's been faithful before and trusting that he's going to be faithful now. And so that's just something I wanted to share. Oh, I wanted to share in Psalms. Psalm 149 verse 4, for the Lord delights in his people. He crowns the humble with victory. Verse 5, let the faithful rejoice that he honors them. Let them sing for joy as they lie on their beds. And actually the verse before that is one of my favorite ones. It says, praise his name with dancing. And I love to dance. I'm also not good at dancing, but I enjoy dancing. And so I think the Lord is just wrapping all of these things up together. And so I encourage you, if you don't have a word you want to focus on this year, it's not that you can't enjoy other words, but it's just to kind of zone in and focus and see something that you can work on. And for me, that was to abide. And if I'm abiding in Jesus as his daughter, joy is going to overflow from that. And when overflow of joy, it's going to be easier for me to delight in him, even when things are hard. And I'm going to praise his name with dancing. And then verse 5 that I just read, it says, let them sing for joy as they lie in their beds. And so even when you're lying in your bed, still singing for joy. And I think singing and dancing is a way to be reminded of the joy that comes from Christ, and that makes it easier to delight in him, and just remembering that he also delights in us when we follow him as his children, and he crowns the humble with victory, which is something that I think we all can work on, especially myself, is what does it look like to be humble, and that's who he's going to crown with victory. And so I hope that this episode's encourage you maybe to abide in Jesus and to delight in Jesus, or maybe it encourages you to look and reflect on this past year and see what you want to bring with you and what you want to leave there, and maybe just like praying about a word that might help you just be aware of what the Lord is trying to teach you in this year or in this new season. So thank you guys for listening. If you have not ordered my book yet, it's still on Amazon. It's called Oh Honey. And thanks for tuning into the podcast every Tuesday, and I'll see you next week with a fun guest that I'm so excited for y'all to hear from. So thanks for watching. Bye.